Welcome to the GSMC Pets Podcast, the show that caters to pet lovers of all kinds. We'll talk about pets on social media, pets doing amazing things, and how to take care of the pets in your life. Whether your pet is a dog, a cat, a llama, hamster, reptile, or something more exotic, you'll find educational and entertaining information on the GSMC Pets Podcast. GSMC Pets Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Samantha, and if you're just like me, you are self-isolating because of you know what. What does that mean to self-isolate? Well, I guess staying indoors and not having any contact with anyone, which sucks when you have a dog, because dogs are such a social and active animal that, well, it's just kind of an explosion of energy, right? But you can still let them run around in your backyard, but walking your fur friends could inadvertently be a perfect opportunity to spread these germs that are possibly infecting the very vulnerable individuals. Now, unfortunately, you can't keep your dog outside day in and day out until the end of the pandemic, especially if they are indoor pets primarily. And this brings us to today's topic, which is what to do with your pets during self-isolation. And we'll cover various ways to entertain your pets, as well as yourself. And we'll talk about some fun TikToks, indoor enrichment for your pets, grooming, pet crafts you can do for your pets, and also music and reading, which I'll keep that as a surprise. And then we will close on just talking about one of the internet's most famous pet owners, Jenna Marbles. I'm guessing that a lot of today's episode will be seriously dependent on social media and my own personal experience with things to do with your pets, honestly, especially for this first topic, and it is pet TikToks. More specifically, TikToks that you can do with your pets. I'll be honest, I haven't yet tried these, but my husband actually does a lot of these, what they call pet challenges, unofficially. So he's definitely not TikTok official, so you can't find him. I don't think he'd ever do that either. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I have done one of these challenges with Regina the other day, out of sheer boredom and curiosity pretty much, but you know what? I did it. We did it. So we're talking about something called the dog egg challenge. And, well, were we successful? Well, keep on listening. Maybe you'll like what you hear. So now we need to do a little bit of a history lesson. Do you guys remember when there were videos going around about golden retrievers holding eggs gently in their mouths? People had claimed that they were the only breed of dog that could do that. And, why? I honestly don't know, because I can report to you that that claim is totally ridiculous and wrong. So I saw the dog egg challenge on TikTok this week, and it just reminded me of that. And just to pause and really think about how this looks, one of my favorite TikToks of this was of a husky successfully holding it in their mouth, and then they got so excited when they placed the egg back onto the ground that they kind of danced around like a cute little husky and then stomped on it, and it just went splat. I decided that we could put it to the test with us, especially with Regina being a rambunctious puppy. Surely she wouldn't be able to control herself and would definitely break it in her mouth, which sounds really gross at that point. Ugh. But now I Now, kind of think of it like this. I took one of our last eggs during our self-isolation period. One of our last eggs, and I like to eat my egg and rice in the morning, but I don't know what I was thinking, but I took one of our last eggs from the fridge and I gave it to her, and this precious little girl held it in her mouth so gently, and then she ran away and dropped it on my rug. The egg didn't break, though, thank God. What happened to it after that? Well, I washed it, I cooked it, and now it's in my belly. I really wanted to have Cookie try, but her mouth is so obscenely small, I doubt she could have fit a large egg in it. But who knows, I could have been surprised. Sometimes the grandma has some of those in her, deep, deep within her. Still, I'm not going to try. I can't imagine cleaning uncooked egg from a small dog's mouth that apparently its breed is historically known for having bad breath. And that's what I learned at her vet's the other day. What have you learned recently? Now, moving on, carry on. One of the TikTok challenges that I just found about today was the Mr. Sandman challenge. Yes, the song Mr. Sandman. With, I can't remember who the Pointer Sisters? Yeah, I think that's it. But it's very interesting, actually. Interesting as in like cute and simple. But it's originally a TikTok with a cat in a 9-screen setting. And essentially the pet does something along with the beginning of the song. You know, it's like the vocal version of the wave, right? You know, the wave that you do in football games or sporting events anyway. But, you know, it sounds like dum 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 dum. You know, and then it keeps on going. That probably sucked, but oh well. I'm not re-recording that. And, this TikTok is actually pretty great. Not because of my singing qualities. I haven't won any awards, I'm sorry. But it is great because of how low skill it is for people and their pets. You just face the camera and make sure you have that 9-screen setting, and you do something cute to the music. Now, if you want to be fancy, you could always have your fur baby do some cool tricks for the video. But no pressure, don't worry about it. This is unlike the Onanana challenge with your pets. To be honest, it first started off with people to the beat of some song, to the lyrics Onanana, if you can call those lyrics. But they would, to those quote-unquote lyrics, basically tap their feet against each other, like foot to foot. And it was basically choreographed dancing. But what I want you to think of in this case for your pets, basically think patty cake with your pet to a specific beat. This means coordination and practice. Essentially, it's for the people who saw the human version of the challenge and thought it would be super cool to try it with their pets. Typically dogs. I haven't seen a cat version yet, unfortunately, but you know that is going to be adorable when it does happen. Please send me the TikTok if you find one with a cat. That'd be so amazing. Thank you. And now, sorry. Another challenge that requires a bit of skill is the Whoa challenge. And this one's been around for a bit, and I'll just go ahead and say it's not like the Onana challenge in the way that it's, or whatever it's called. It's not the same in action, but like the music too. The only quote unquote lyric you have is whoa. But it's maybe there's more to it, but I don't know. And I don't care to find out. But anyway, the first video that I saw of this, I think of a Bichon running down the hallway of a house toward the camera, basically. And right in front of this camera, the owner makes some sort of shape with their hand, and the Bichon just kind of runs up to the music and sticks its nose right into the shape right when it says, whoa. And it's just perfect timing. And it's adorable. And everyone should watch it and find TikTok showing a pupper failing at that. That is also quite cute. I have seen those, so you don't feel pressured to send me any of those. But we've been giving dogs too much attention. Let's talk about cat challenges. My favorite, the cat diaries. And this is actually a very easy one to do. Basically, you video your cat being themselves, which typically is of them sitting, stretching, staring, any of those. To make the magic, you make a script of them reading aloud a silly diary entry reporting on himself and the humans of the household. Now, Eisen has his bachelor pad in the basement, so I would have to desperately search for him to do this. And he likes the bathroom in particular, but he kind of gets, hidden in, I don't even know. He just hides somewhere, and he's a hide and seek champion, like most cats actually. But anyway, this actually makes me think of how he was once toilet trained, but I realized after a while, and this was in college, but he was once toilet trained, and I learned through some research that toilet training plus, flush, teaching how to flush prevents us from catching any urine or bowel issues with your little buddy. So we stopped that because Eisen had had stomach issues for a period of time, and we just didn't want to risk anything like that. But, another tidbit of information that you learned? Possibly? This is very educational, isn't it? So all of this sounds like a ton of fun, right? Well, unfortunately, there are still some people that ruin it for everyone. Here are some challenges to not do with your pets because it's actually pretty cruel. First off, the put it in a bun challenge. Essentially, it's actually really simple and stupid, really, and I don't see the appeal of it. But essentially, your dog or cat will have their ears tied together with a hair tie or a rubber band, and it kind of looks like a bun at the end. But I've seen no pets looking excited about this. Another one that I really don't like, I hate it, absolutely hate it. There is this recorded version intro to a variation of If You're Happy and You Know It, na na na. So during the vocal breaks, in the lyrics, the owners slap their dogs repeatedly in the face or on their butt, and the dog does not look like they're having fun. I mean, for the most part, in most of the ones that I saw, somebody is essentially hitting them in the face repeatedly. Would you like that? No, I know I wouldn't. But don't do it. And there are actually animal rights groups that hate these two trends. It's mean, and again, don't do it. You have these challenges that I have just suggested to you at the very beginning of this episode, and use those to create some interesting TikToks with you and your pet. Now, if TikToks aren't up your alley, that's okay. There are plenty of other things you can do, nerd. You know what? All I ask of you is to watch a few TikToks. Maybe just try doing one with your pet. I had fun when Regina, did her challenge, but I'm not doing it anymore. It's just one time only. But you don't even have to do the ones that I gave you. There's a plethora of other challenges you can do. But again, if you don't want to, fine, nerd. And we can talk about some other things you can do with your pet. Maybe some enrichment activities, preferably ones you can do indoors. Because again, we are all self-isolating. Hooray!
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
TikToks are great, especially when they are pet friendly and it doesn't have to be just limited to the challenges I gave you. Seriously, just scroll through some of these TikToks and you will get inspired, I promise you. This goes the same for indoor enrichment activities for your pups and cats and other furry friends. And, maybe your scaly friends too. I don't know. I don't have any experience with that. But I can't really say much about Cookie because she's occasionally, chewing stuff. She likes her treats and she occasionally plays with a toy when Regina's not around. But she is in her golden years, so she prefers to be on laps and she prefers to be sleeping. And you know what? Even at my age, I'm still not going to tell you, but even at my age, that sounds fantastic. Now, eating is a little weird for her, but there's a story behind that, and I don't really want to get into it just yet. But anyway, all you need to do, pet her, give her some tasty treats, and that's really about it. This grandma will be happy if you do those two things. And, well, then it gets to Regina and Eisen. And those two are the ones that absolutely need this daily enrichment that I'm talking about. With us being locked indoors for so long, well, that limits us a little. There are no dog parks that you can go to. There are no pet stores that you can go to. And, well, pet dates, you don't want to go to someone's house and potentially expose everyone to the sickness. So, again, no for the times. Just no. This means that we gotta be more intentional, and that looks different for Reggie and Eisen. I'm going to start with Eisen. Cats are generally low maintenance. Feed, water, clean the poop box, absolutely content. But cats like Eisen get feisty. In a long period of time, little to no enrichment is going to lead up to a bunch of pent-up energy, and you know what that means. Understandably, a lot of acting out. Like ripping up your furniture, pooping out of their litter box, climbing on curtains. No, Eisen doesn't do that. But, playing with stuff that he shouldn't be playing with. Like, for instance, if he's hungry, he'll chew on wires, like most cats do. You're not alone, I promise you that. And those sour apple sprays just do not work with this guy. He finds everything tasty. But anyway, hopefully you've stocked up on kitty-safe treats, because my major suggestion for your cat is just training. My husband and I have worked on training Eisen ever since we realized just how smart he is. He's a very smart cat. And just to kind of put it into perspective, when he was a kitten, he learned how to open one of those linen closet doors that, slide out. And he climbed to the very top shelf and opened up the bag and started eating it. And he would do it almost every single day. Any chance that he knew that mom and dad, well, we're actually just his roommates, but he realized that as long as we weren't around, he could get away with that. So, tricky little cat. But anyway, he knows how to sit, he knows how to stand, he hops up, all kinds of cute things. But he's mostly pretty lazy, so, he's okay now. And I mentioned that he was toilet trained for a time, and, again, cats are trainable if you have the time and the patience. And let's face it, self-isolation leads to a lot of free time, or even just a few extra minutes in your life. And, if you have those extra minutes in your life, then you probably should have a little more patience, especially if you're desperately looking for something to do. Now, for real, 10 minutes with your cat, especially if they're food motivated like Eisen, and he is very food motivated, that could lead to some good progress. Now, if your kid cat is not exactly willing to be trained, because we know how independent they are, then have things that stimulate them. We're lucky, and it's just in time for the spring, so, well, we have a 3 Seasons room in the back of our house. And there are so many big windows, and it's bright, and we have some nice greenery in the backyard. And when we first moved in, I knew that we had to put Eisen's giant cat tree there, And this cat tree is huge. And not like those big palaces or anything like that, but it was a big cat tree, and I just knew I had to put it right between, right at the corner of these two windows so he could see everything, from, at that angle. So when he makes his way up from his bachelor pad, he enjoys watching the birds, just kind of playing on a bush like nearby. And he sometimes chatters, but not really anymore. He's gotten quite old now. 13, the same age as Cookie, but he still acts far more lively than her. But again, different topic. We'll talk about that later. And I don't know if I would recommend opening the windows. It really depends on how paranoid you are about just the spread of the virus. But, do what you're comfortable with. And of course, there is actually playing with your cat. So getting all those different kinds of toys, knowing the ones that your cat likes and stuff. And, just playing with them. I think Jackson Galaxy was suggesting at least 10 minutes of play with your cats, and, more if you have a kitten because of, just that ball of super energy. But, and I know this is coming up, the easiest way to stimulate your cat, greenery. Well, the special something, more specifically catnip. We have a giant container of catnip for Eisen. It keeps him occupied and happy. Sometimes it brings him out of his bachelor pad, but he likes his privacy when he enjoys the catnip, if you know what I mean. He'll eventually come around for love after that because, he's in a good mood. But, yeah, when all else fails, catnip, guys. Then Regina, who is still a puppy. This little one has to be stimulated or else I get the brunt of her energy, like her little teeth kisses. Now, how am I coping? I am hoping to the divine that her training treats last. Yep, this girl is in the process of learning the directive quiet. She's getting there. She does it about 50% of the time, but, honestly, some of the best things you can do for your dog and for you is to work on just the basic directives, like, sit, stay, lie down, those kind of things. And, eventually you can get to those cool tricks. Now, here's a little story, and I'm full of stories, I'm so sorry. But when I was depressed, and that happens frequently, unfortunately, when I was depressed, I kind of was also in a point of self-isolation. And I spent like an hour just trying to teach Regina how to shake my hand. I say I tried. But here's the thing. It worked. We did it consistently. Regina was tired. I was so tired. And I cried because I was so happy and depressed at the same time. I felt a great sense of accomplishment, something that seemed pretty much impossible in my state. And also, I was intensely proud of Regina. Training is definitely frustrating, but it expels so much energy. And especially when there's a celebratory play following it, And I guess this kind of speaks volumes about how this can help you as an individual. Finding a sense of accomplishment might be difficult for some of us while we're self-isolating. Being able to successfully see your pet learning it and retaining a trick that you taught them is an amazing feeling that, really helps you when you're feeling down. Same thing when you're training a Kit Kat. There's something very special about watching the fur kids succeed. Pets are very different from babies and toddlers, and I want to make that clear. But there are some parallels there, and I can only imagine the emotions that parents feel, and I feel like it's comparable, but definitely not the same. Anyway, definitely try it out. It's, training is fun. And there's also, in addition to the training, this good old chew approach. So we bought Regina the biggest chew bone that we could find, one of those big mammoth bones that you can find at Kroger, actually. And she has been making good progress on it, especially now that we are in limited supply. It helps keep the pups from chewing on your belongings, and it gives you a break from their rambunctious behavior. Unless they're like Regina and they hurl their bone across the room. Yeah. she has done this plenty of times, and I just have to say, she is a strong girl. But I also mentioned Cookie, and while she is one of those dogs that basically only sleeps and eats, it doesn't mean she is isolated from us. We just find different ways to engage her during this time, and for this next segment, we are going to get into grooming. Not merely something Regina or Eisen really need, but, they still need it, but not as much as Cookie. But, because Cookie is a toy poodle. So, because of that, there is an insta need for grooming this girl. Wait and find out how much time we have to set aside for Cookie. You would be very surprised.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back. We just talked about indoor enrichment that you can do for your pets, specifically training. It's pretty self-explanatory. But I just wanted to go over some for emphasis. If you know any others, share this with some of your suggestions. I would love that. Now, we also kind of touched on some close bonding with your pet. Successful retained training. And aside from that, there's another thing that you can do to have this, and that is grooming. Now, Cookie, I always feel like I'm talking about Cookie, but she's such a complicated dog. There's so much to talk about with her. Now, Cookie is a dog that must be groomed regularly. She's a poodle. Her fur easily gets matted, and her fur grows out into different colors that make her look dirty. She's a creamy, I was about to say a creamy Cookie. She's a creamy looking poodle, and then she has like this auburn color that grows out on her, and it's, it really is gross, actually. Now, here's what we think, and this is kind of sad. We think that she was abused and she is traumatized, so handling her is extremely difficult because of that abuse. Now, here's what we know. She's easy to bathe, not easy to brush or easy to cut her fur. Now, that being said, nightly brushing is difficult because she refuses to sit still, snaps when you touch a certain spot on her body, and, the claw trimming. We can barely handle it. Barely. She shrieks at any point in the process, and that's even if we haven't done anything. And seriously, when I took her to the vets the other day, she was just yelping because I told the vets essentially, could you please just try to trim her claws? Maybe I'm just doing something wrong. But no, she was crying the entire time, and it just broke my heart. But this all mounts up to trauma. And not all pet owners have to deal with this when they groom their dogs, but we unfortunately have to. The primary thing about grooming your pet is knowing their limits. There's an amount of trust that goes into this process. Dogs are nervous about people trimming their claws, for instance. It's why they move around nervously and pull their feet away. Again, normal. when it comes to the small portion of the process, you have to be careful and prepared for any accidents. Being loving is huge in this, and trust is also huge in grooming. You are, after all, bringing multiple sharp objects to them and pointing them at their little bodies. Now, Grandma Cookie is sensitive with her rump, her belly, and her face. So that's a lot of surface area that she's very sensitive about. And there is just a trust that is absent in her, and I don't think we'll ever get completely there at any point in the rest of her life. Like, I think that at some point, there's going to be some amount of distrust in us that we can't fix, unfortunately. Anyway, you can say that all that is the frustrating part and she won't cooperate, but she actually loves to be bathed. She likes looking and feeling good. You can actually see it in how she walks, or rather she bounds around the house, just kind of showing off her pretty coat after it's been trimmed. It's kind of like those stories of an extremely depressed individual who hasn't brushed their hair in months, hasn't washed it in months, and it becomes like really matted and difficult to even manage. But eventually, just to do some self-care for themselves, they go to a hairstylist. And I remember reading about one that took several hours because it was so matted. But, the entire process of, styling the hair is pretty big. And I would say at the very end of it, this individual sees and feels the hair. They notice how different they look with cared for hair. And, probably the smells of their fragrant products used in their hair, that probably is very nice and, positively stimulating for them. And, of course, the hair softness. I mean, soft hair is very comforting. I mean, pet a golden retriever, okay? Anyway, maybe during the treatment they got a nice scalp massage from their stylist, and I will go ahead and say that this is indeed true. You can get a scalp massage while you are at a hairstylist. So, guys, if you want to go to a hairstylist, definitely talk to the ladies or, other gents about potential places where you can get a haircut and also a scalp massage. Just saying. And, all of it. It's just rejuvenating. And I think that this is something that Cookie experiences when we finally finish her grooming. There's this extra bounce in her step, but, it's an entire ordeal. We have to have breaks. She's lashing out at us, growling and snapping at us, and then she's crying, and we get frustrated, and we comfort her. It's, it's a cycle, and it just takes so much patience, and it wears us out. In the end, it's like a 2 to 3 day process. And by the end of it, seeing how she struts down the floor, it's one of the most wonderful things for me, and it makes it worth it. And it makes me feel like slowly we're building up trust with her, and I really hope that's the case. Now, I imagine that not everyone has that kind of grooming experience with their dogs. Like, Cookie is a special case, but it still is work, and it's needing love and devotion, and it can even just be the increase of gentle touch and pets while lathering soap into their fur. It can also be a fun thing to do with your kids if you do have kids, or, at least movies have made it look like fun, when you're washing the pet with the kids. But, do it at your own discretion. I refrain from commenting anymore on that. I seem to talk about Cookie a lot because I want to talk about her and her brushing. I've already mentioned that she is difficult with brushing, and you cannot imagine. She can't sit still enough. It's almost like the bathing and trimming. She's just very sensitive, and when she's done, that's the crazy thing. She is as happy as can be. Probably the most appreciative of our pets, though, is Eisen. He doesn't have long hair, but his skin gets itchy. He has some pretty bad dandruff, and brushing is one of his greatest loves aside from food. He purrs loudly and he drools everywhere, So why? Why am I talking about this? Well, yes, it's great for stimulation, but it also keeps your pet healthy. At least in Cookie's case, she was clearly in poor health when we first rescued her. Her back had dermatitis, and there was scarring from the scratching and flea bites from her, just all over her back. It was the result of serious neglect, and I hate that she went through that. But I don't know. Imagine if you didn't shower for 3 months, and you were stuck outdoors, and you're not used to being outdoors, and you're just there for 3 months. And for most people, I have a question. Would you feel good after that? And would you look healthy? Now, I think I would generally get an overall no from people that are responding to this. So this really isn't just about enrichment while being in self-isolation. It's also about health. And a healthy pup is a happy pup, right? Just like a healthy you is a happy you. I call it self-maintenance. The boat's been out in rough waters. It's been beaten about. So you return to dock and begin the process of recovering and fixing the boat. You are the boat in this analogy. And your pet, like Cookie, is also that boat. But I need to remind you of something I talked about in my St. Patrick's Day episode. Do not dye your pup a different color when grooming them. Here's what my gal at the hair salon said, actually. We can make that choice to dye our hair. They can't. They cannot consent. Don't risk their health over you wanting to make them have a pop of color. Now, after grooming, though, we need to have some fun again. And I promised that I would include something that would also entertain you as you sit at home in isolation. I'm going to tell you about how you can take random objects from your home. Sorry about that. And then, you don't even have to leave your house. That's kind of amazing, right? And you get to do crafts with these random items from your house. How cool is that?
Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Grooming can be hard work. At times, it isn't fun. I mean, grooming Cookie in particular is not fun, but it's also rewarding. But anyway, you know what's fun? Crafts. And you know what's even more fun? Crafts with your pet. And, Care.com is a great resource for pet owners, actually. It has a list, it has a diverse group of resources for you to kind of take at. Like, I don't know, they have different articles that include, sources from other pet sites. And kind of think of it like a middleman, but it's basically all of these things coming together. And, I actually used one of the crafts posted on the site recently. And maybe I haven't mentioned this before, but Regina is still quite a chewer. And when she gets a bit too excited, she can pinch with her teeth. The pinch kisses. And I decided to keep her mouth preoccupied. I wanted to try out what the author of the article called the super simple frozen sock toy. It definitely caught my attention because, Reggie loves to chew on ice cubes, and you know what? She also likes to chew on socks. I don't know if that's something to, to reward, though. But anyway, I figured, why not? As the name declares, this is super simple, almost stupid simple. Take a part of a long sock, the longer the better, and start knotting it. Just keep on knotting it, and knot it until it becomes like a sock ball. And it'll be, basically the size of a baseball. And then you're going to take this sock ball, and you're going to soak it with water. And once it's completely soaked, and it's really hard to tell sometimes because of how dense it is, but once it's completely soaked, you put it into the freezer. And, the freezer part is going to be the longest part, obviously, because, well, you're freezing water on a sock. And so once it's frozen, take it out, and voila, you have an easy chew. Reggie loved it and chewed it until the sock ball thawed, and then she left it alone. I guess that this would probably be the drawback with this one. Monitoring that it's still frozen, and then if it's not frozen, you start soaking it up with water, and then you start refreezing it. If you tend to be lazy like me, it might not be the ideal craft for you because it requires a lot of extra maintenance. But, there are other sock toys too that you can do. For instance, this next sock toy requires less maintenance. All you need, a sock that can fit a plastic bottle in it and, just some twine or some kind of string. And you're also going to need a pair of scissors. And so you're going to make sure you have a big sock. So like a serious athletic tube sock, because you're cutting off the foot part of the sock and you need just enough sock to fit a regular sized water bottle. So you stick the bottle in the tube of the sock, tie it up with the twine or the string, and you give it to your doggo. Occasionally, you'll need to change out the bottles and retie it because, they really love that sound of the bottle crunching and stuff. And, eventually it'll start kind of breaking apart because they're chewing so much. And, Reggie is like a pit mix. She has some powerful, bite strength. So I can imagine that being demolished quite fast. Kind of a drawback, I imagine. But occasionally you'll need to change it out. But aside from that, it's seriously low maintenance. Just have a bottle at hand. And, just make sure that the sock is perfectly fine and, not ripping apart in the maws of your pet. And you know what? This is actually really good for small dogs too. Let's not forget our small puppies. So, you can actually just get a small bottle, like the bottle of waters that you can put into your kids' lunch boxes. And, it's just a really small bottle. But you can take that and then simply you can cut up that old pair, that sock, and then do it in smaller sections. Now, I will say, that part's easy. But the sock selection part is where you need to be a little bit wise about. So, fair warning, the website does note that if you use a fuzzy sock, chances are, and you should be prepared for this, there are going to be fuzzies getting everywhere on your floor. Now, how often do you vacuum? How often do you sweep? Keep that in mind. Now, another cool craft that one of my friends actually made for Regina when she was like 30 pounds lighter. This thing was a no-sew denim tug. So I found the directions for this too. And simply, you can cut up an old pair of jeans that you don't wear anymore and make it into long strips. Then, braid it. And if you need help learning how to braid, well, there are plenty of good YouTube tutorials to follow. I will say beware because there are all kinds of ways to braid. So, keep that in mind. And, parents, aside from that, if your daughters or sons are into hair, knowing how to do a simple braid is like one of the huge must-knows. They'll know that eventually, and then, you're kind of free to let them do whatever they want with the, with the braids and hairs because, you start getting fishtails, you start getting French braids, all that kind of stuff. I don't even know all these, types of braids because I've never had to braid my hair. Now, heck, if you have a drill, and this is another craft that you can do, if you have a drill, a small section of PVC pipe, PVC caps, and some sandpaper, I mean, hey, you can get a pretty awesome kind of toy for your pets. You know, this is mostly for dogs, though. Well, actually, depending on the size that you make it, it could also be for cats. But you can basically make a treat dispenser for your pet. And all you need to do is drill holes, sand the rough edges of those holes so, you know, your fur baby doesn't, you know, get cut. And you put the caps onto the tube, but as you're doing that, you're also putting in the treats. And again, you're just using items from your home. And once you like give it to Fido and they start playing around with it and getting all those treats, they'll be distracted for a good while. All you have to do is find those items at your house and just think, you don't have to make your way to a pet store right now, because it's basically like one of those Kong dispensers. And, you know, those kind of add up a little bit over time, especially when your dog, Regina, loses them. I am almost positive she buries them in the backyard, actually. But, again, you use the items from your home, and you don't leave, which is the goal right now, right? So, now, what if you finish all these crafts super fast? Well, chances are you probably will with how easy they are. So maybe you're looking for an extended project. Look no further than painting with the pup or your cat. Paw print art. Maybe you have a canvas sitting around, or maybe you have a poster board. You know, steal little Johnny's poster board for his project that, you know, he now no longer has to have. But, or even better, or a large piece of wood that maybe you were originally intending on stenciling live, laugh, love in cursive, you know, on it, but then you lost interest in doing that. So wouldn't it be cuter out of all those things if, you know, they had little puppy and kitty paws? I've seen some pretty cool things, like seriously, layering the paw prints to appear like a flower. That's awesome. And I don't know. I have to say, it's kind of brilliant, and I can imagine so many other people finding ways to have their pets make some pretty image with their paws. But seriously, if your pet doesn't want to do it, don't make them. It's not all about you, remember that. However, if your pets are so inclined, have some fun. Make sure to wash your pet's paws thoroughly, though, and make sure that they don't ingest the paint, because you don't want your pet to get sick at all. Now, on a side note, you can also paint a portrait of your pet, especially if they're being difficult about, you know, painting with you. Now, that can be fun if they sit still long enough. And, you know, it will probably be a good activity if they're sleeping. You know, who knows? Maybe you could do what one of my high school friends did to help get some extra cash during college. You know, take requests, you know. Commissioned art. Have people send pictures of their dogs, and you paint them for, you know, some fee. And I mean, seriously, I would probably buy a few portraits of my pet family if my husband let me. Now, if you want more options of things to create with or for your pets, there is a plethora of sources that you can use, which leads to the topic of my next segment. How does one soothe the savage beast? Well, plenty of ways. I would not suggest CBD treats for puppies who are after about an hour. I mean, like, at least for after an hour for Regina. And she's not completely house trained. She's struggling with that, unfortunately. But, you know, an hour in, she cannot control her bladder. So, keep that in mind. I want to put that out there. Anyway, I would like you to all think, maybe our pets truly love the arts and humanities. And maybe they just like music like jazz and Mozart and orchestral compositions. Or maybe they specifically like Wes Montgomery. Either way, pets and music and soothing sounds are a great way to spend quality time with each other.
the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Travel Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
I feel like I can be more off the cuff about this segment on soothing the beast with music, and you're going to love this reading. The talk about TikToks and crafts and everything else, that's a little more removed from what I typically do. I do train my pets, which, is good, but I'm a very musically motivated individual. I sing at home with no audience, except for the fam, and I sing loud. I sing in the shower. I sing while I'm cooking. Music is a huge part of my life, so naturally, I want to include music in the lives of my pets. And the reading. I'm a reader. I won't say I'm a book nerd. That's my husband. But, a topic for another day, right? And, these activities have somehow become embedded in the calming of my little demon baby, Regina. So, for instance, currently, Regina and Cookie, they were sleeping on top of me while I was writing, which, as you know, is difficult. But how did I get them from going from a 10 in the chaos scale to, sleeping on me? Well, I sang the Gambler to them, and they settled. They're calm, Reggie's snoring, Cookie is snuggled. There isn't a particular song or vocalist that they like that I know of. Well, I guess technically it's me that they love. Since, they're looking to me to sing. It doesn't even matter what song I sing, because, one, they don't understand the words, and two, they love me. I hope. I hope. I even make up songs on the fly about them, and this helps them. I don't know if it'll help your buddies, but why not try? They aren't going to be the ones who go around saying how terrible a vocalist you are. Honestly, you would be advertising it without a thought, I bet. I know I do. Heck, if you want, you can even dance with them too, though that could be potentially energizing to them. So, if you want to give that a try, do it. Maybe even make a TikTok over it, or video it, and keep it to yourself. Think of it as Tom Hanks' character in Saving Private Ryan when he's asked about his wife. That image, that moment, belongs to you and you alone, and you don't want to give that away. Again, it's yours. But, honestly, you don't have to share every little thing that you do in your life. Take some time to cherish the moments without a phone interrupting them. Now, I've always heard that pets love the sound of jazz and classical music. I mean, seriously, our last pup, Rhodey, loved Wes Montgomery specifically. He would find a spot to cuddle and he would just relax to the music, and we joked that he was a real jazz snob, which is really goofy because we had this persona of him being, kind of dumb. But apparently that was one of the classy things about him. He loved Wes Montgomery. So anyway, as a way to remember him, we usually play Montgomery's music on our record player. And, it gets a little somber at first, but then, you really start to enjoy it because of those memories. Now, let's move away from that. So for Regina, we're still trying to find that perfect fit. So I usually just settle with singing to her. It was actually something that I did when we first rescued her and it was bedtime. And this is when we failed to crate train her. Yes, I we did a terrible job, and she sleeps wherever she wants except for the bed now. She calmed down eventually when I was singing to her, and, she slept for a good while. And, puppies, they wake up frequently at night. But, that's just not enough, though. I get tired, and then, she starts to follow me whenever I need to move, and she's like, really focused on me, like, talking to her at that point. So, I'm getting the feeling, though, based on our last session of music, that she may like slow piano music and cellos, though. I'm actually not surprised by the cello. It really captures her underlying coolness, because, cellos are like trombones, and trombones are super cool. Now, this next thing, though, you are going to laugh, but let me start with a story. Our library sent a notice that they would be closing indefinitely due to the pandemic. My husband and I decided that we should go and get what we need. I checked out an armful of books, and later that night, I settled down in my armchair. Cookie hopped on, settling between my leg and the arm of the chair. And Regina, ever jealous and needy, hopped onto my lap, and she settled. I had a book in my hands, and I figured that it would be funny to read aloud to them, so I started. And Regina made herself super comfortable. It could just be my voice, but man, every time I have a book in my hand and I sit on my chair, Reggie walks over to me and she settles on my lap. I read aloud to her, and it makes her so calm. I should probably find audiobooks for her, so that when we are away, she can, listen to a book and, just be comfortable. I mean, actually, maybe some Virginia Woolf would be good for her because of how poetic it sounds. Because my Reggie girl has some pretty good taste. Now, this all kind of goes back to bonding and making your pet feel safe during these difficult times. And it's a great way for us to stay calm under pressure, too. Remember that pets can read our emotions pretty well. If they see you panicking, they will feel that energy. This is like grooming. They will pick up if you feel nervous about, say, clipping their claws. They'll get nervous and try to get away. They're afraid that you're going to hurt them because you're nervous. The best thing that we can do is be calm, stay inside as much as we can, and do our basic hygiene, hygiene activities and then some. Also, just love on your buddies, just as you would any other day. Pets need routine. And while our extended presence at home doesn't shake up their routine, it does shake up their routine. The positive energy that you give out will ease them, and it'll make things a lot better. It doesn't mean that you can't be scared or anxious. We're human, after all. Speaking of humans, I want to talk specifically about this one human that is an exciting and excellent mom to her fur babies. You might actually be familiar with her if you're on YouTube. She has her own channel and has actually been around for quite a while. So, her career as a YouTuber has a lot of longevity. Her name? Jenna Marbles. And she has, she usually has her boyfriend, Julian, in the videos. He's usually filming. And then they have their fur babies, Marbles, Kermit, Peach, and Bunny. Bunny is a recent addition. So what makes Jenna such a good parent for her babies? Well, let's find out.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
all the talk of what we can do with our pets, or for our pets, I figured we could talk about someone who really shows her love towards her pets. Someone who has grown her following on YouTube for years and really started showing people what it's like to be a pet parent in the most recent episodes that she's had. And that person is Miss Jenna Marbles. Already, a few days ago, she posted on her channel a video that she hopes will be a comfort to others, especially during self-isolation. And it features her pets just cuddling. You know, they're being cute. They're under comfy blankets, and they're being pet by Jenna and Julian. And it's just, I don't know, it's so sweet. And sometimes that is just something that we most definitely need. You know, cute videos of animals being themselves. I mean, come on, cat videos? Puppy videos? I mean, puppy bowl. That's one thing, a huge thing. And it's something that makes us feel included and just makes us feel like this need to nurture. And, that's me doing pop psychology. And, you can completely ignore that if you want. But, I would say that, Jenna has a history of spoiling her dogs, and, she has them appear in her videos, but, she doesn't force them to do that. Sure, that doesn't say much about her pet parenting skills. Something that made me truly realize how good she was with her dogs was when she and Julian first came home with a retired racing greyhound that they adopted, and this is Bunny. And they were gentle with her when she first joined the family. Bunny was essentially scared of everything, like the television, the film equipment that they had, the stairs, and just random noises. She wasn't comfortable with the grass because she wasn't used to that. All kinds of things. And they were so devoted, and they gave so much time and energy and patience to make sure that Bunny could adapt to her new environment. They gave Bunny breaks and were keen on her body language. I mean, just recently, it was her birthday. It was her birthday again because they got their birthday wrong for her. But, she's had 2 birthdays this year. But one of the things that Jenna fans know is that she has multiple points, in her career, taking Kermit, Marbles, and Peach to the pet store to essentially spoil them. And for Bunny's birthday, they figured that they would try taking her to a pet store. But they made it clear to the viewers that they were not going to force her to go in if she didn't want to. In the end, Bunny did not want to leave the car, and, that is perfectly fine. Jenna and Julian were fine with it, and, they just went ahead and got her treats aside from, even though she was inside the car. Now, there are also occasions, like when Kermit fell into their pool. Like, apparently he didn't know how to swim. So, because of that incident that happened, they took action and they bought their dogs life vests, and they started training them to be more comfortable around water and, kind of showing them the ropes of swimming. Now, and also kind of like showing them, like, where do you swim to if you fall in? You swim to the shallow end. And they started getting that. They're pretty fast on the uptake, actually. Now, this was all documented for her channel, and she shows such a general care for the well-being of her little buddies. I find myself wishing that I could be just as good a parent as she is, a pet parent as she is. Now, I do find it so impressive that she has trained all 4 of these dogs. Some people that I know of can barely handle 1. Also, managing all of these animals, it feels like complete chaos when my husband, husband and I give Eisen his medicine. It's ridiculous. We have a baby gate dividing the kitchen from the rest of the house. We are still trying to train Regina to not get overexcited about seeing Eisen. It's tough. It's also tough to teach her gentle play with Cookie. And again, Jenna has 4 dogs. She's slowly introducing them, to each other. Their dogs are so socialized well, and, of course they're spoiled rotten, but, being spoiled is not a problem, especially when they're well behaved. So another thing about having 4 dogs, and, just Jenna in general, is that, I said that she was slowly introducing them, but I want to emphasize that she spaced out the periods between adopting the dogs, and they obviously can afford to take care of all of them financially. Now, I'm not saying that they're loaded and that if you don't have money, you can't have pets, but, Jenna and Julian seem to be at least comfortable enough to feel secure to grow their family this much. And this is something that some people don't consider. It costs to have a pet. It costs more to have multiple pets. Not just adoption fees, but there are multiple vet trips. If you're planning on leaving town and you can't bring them, then you're kenneling them. If you're having a hard time grooming them or you don't have the time to do it, you have to pay for grooming, of course, food, and if you have a puppy like Regina who eats everything, well, you're going to be getting a lot of food. So, those things. You have to be willing to spend that money on these precious animals. Now, because, again, you want them to have a happy and healthy life. And Jenna gives her dogs a happy and healthy life. Seriously, I have no idea how Marbles, is still alive. Like, Marbles is old, extremely old, and he's been with her since, the very beginning, it feels like. And I will go ahead and admit that I have been watching Jenna Marbles basically since the beginning. But you know what? Marbles is still happy and comfortable, and, honestly, that's what an old dog needs, and Jenna is very attuned to that. I don't want to say be more like Jenna, but there are some things about her that you should really take note of when it comes to her pets. However, all of our pets are different. They have different quirks and personalities, they have different histories, and they just respond in a different yet predictable way. And I have to say that from what I have observed, Jenna does acknowledge the differences of her dogs. A part of me really wants them to get a cat, but I'm not quite sure if they're cat people. Also, I don't know how cat-friendly the dogs are. It would be interesting to see, but it would be a new dynamic, and, that would be kind of difficult, I imagine. But hey, Jenna isn't just an influencer. She's not just here for everyone's amusement, and you can't just dictate what she will do in her future. And, the really sad thing is that I've seen fans of her just fantasizing what they want for Jenna, not what, is good for her. And, they also dictate what the dog should be doing, what Julian should be doing, and it's a huge mess. And I honestly wish that they would really take the time to really consider them as human beings. Now, I wish that also they took more breaks, because they have they're very regular with their episodes, once a week, and there's a lot of production for it. And, the work that they do looks very professional. And also the little antics that Jenna kind of comes up with, that takes some efforts. She made a little train for the small dogs and she went to a general store, got little buckets that had wheels on them, and it was just basically a chain of buckets for the small dogs to sit on. And she just kind of dragged them around in the house, and it was just kind of weird, fun stuff like that. And there's a lot of planning when it comes to that, right? I mean, I have to seriously plan to clean my dishes. Now, making a plan to do something I don't know, just using a green screen and making yourself into a disco ball, and she has done that. She has, and also a hamburger, I think. But, all of that takes time, and, it really shows how devoted she is to, her audience, and it's why I followed her for so long. She's just amazing, and she has grown so much as a YouTuber that you have to be so proud of her, and you want things to work out for the best for her. And, that kind of leads to the fans fantasizing for her. But again, You can never dictate what another person is doing with their life. And, just back off. What will happen will happen. It's the same thing with what's going on with us. Things seem really tough, but, having that positive energy for the sake of your pets and also for the sake of you, again, what will happen, and we will survive this. It's gonna be okay. Especially when we have our pets and we have entertainers like Jenna Marbles, at least. Anyway, I expect a lot of love being shared between the 6 of them right now, and, they are loving, they're knowledgeable, they're observant, and they're adaptable. These things that pet parents should be. They are things that they should be. And if you just think back to what we've already talked about, these things that you can do with your pets during this time are just a few things that give you Jenna vibes. But, hey, that's what I got for the show. Regina is calling for me, and Eisen is too. It's feeding time, and you do not deny the children. So I'll go ahead and say thank you for listening to the GSMC Pets Podcast, which was brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would love to ask you guys to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That would be really great and wonderful, and it really helps us. And also, you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I will be posting different pictures of my precious Regina, and maybe occasionally pictures of Eisen. Cookie is very camera shy, so we'll work on that. You'll eventually see Cookie a little more. But thank you, and please have a wonderful night.
You've been listening to the GSMC Pets Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast.